Episode 14, The Importance of Goals, with Vaisesika Prabhu. Make your life successful with successfulvaishnavas.com, where we interview devotees who have done wonderful things, and we discuss how to be successful in Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna and welcome to episode 14 of the Successful Vaishnavas podcast. It feels great to be recording another episode, and this time we're doing an interview with His Grace Vaisesika Prabhu, who has a wonderful temple in he has a temple called ISKCON Silicon Valley in California, and it's wonderful the sort of work that he's doing there. He's using a lot of innovative techniques, especially for book distribution, which he's sharing, particularly in North America, which he discusses a little bit in our discussion. I had the good fortune to visit there last year, and while I was there I got to ask him questions about the importance of goals in Krishna consciousness and how we can use goals to help us to be more Krishna conscious. So in personal news, I've just come back from Sydney. I spent 4 days there attending a seminar, which was very interesting. It was a seminar about wealth. It was called Wealth Rockstar. And some of the points which I learned from that seminar is that it's very important to be responsible with our finances. We need to know how much money we're spending each month, how much money we have in our bank account, and to plan ahead with that understanding that we should put aside savings for future emergencies, such as 6 months of our typical expenses, if we can. And then whatever we can save beyond that, we can invest in different ways. So it's interesting about that example. Prabhupada talks about Rupa Goswami, how when he went to go to Lord Chaitanya, he divided up his wealth in a particular way. He gave a certain portion to his family, and he kept a certain portion for emergencies. So there's some precedent there in our Vaishnava background. Anyway, it was a very interesting seminar. And while I was in Sydney, I also had the good fortune to visit some of the famous Australian Hare Krishna restaurants. I visited Hari's, which is a new restaurant run by the temple. And I got to meet Varanayaka Prabhu there, who runs the temple as well as that restaurant. So that was good fun. I managed to catch up with a good friend for lunch there one day, and that was fantastic. And then I went to Govinda's as well, which is a different kind of a restaurant. It's only open for dinners, and they actually have a cinema there. So people come for the meal, and then they go to a cinema afterwards. So this is a special character restaurant and cinema which attracts thinking people that are looking to watch alternative type of films. And also they have a yoga room there where they do kirtan and other such things. So this Govinda's restaurant's run by Pratapana Prabhu, who has been running Govinda's restaurant for many years now. It was previously part of the temple. As I understand, it might have actually been the main centre. But he's been running it for many years, and he's recently just opened another ashram down the road. And I had a wonderful evening there. It was basically just kirtan, prasadam, and more kirtan. But the spirit of the people there was fantastic. And I had a brief talk to Pratapana Prabhu, and he's agreed to be interviewed in a future episode. So I hope I'll be able to get him on the show really soon. So that was my trip to Sydney recently, which was my last chance of doing something independent before our third child is going to be born. Our baby girl is due any time. The due date's in a couple of weeks' time, but who knows how soon she may arrive. In other news, I have been doing a little bit of work on that Kindle children's book that I might have mentioned before, and the rankings have gone up a bit, and we've got 6 5-star reviews, so seems to be popular with the readers. a very nice little book for kids. And if you're interested to check it out, it's you can find it at kklikes.com/dinosaur toy. And we'll actually be doing a promotion on the 17th and 18th of November. That's Eastern Standard Time. We will be giving the book away for free. So if you're interested to check it out, and you can download it, it'll help us a lot, because the more downloads we get, even if they're free downloads, it boosts the rankings in Amazon and helps us to sell more books in future. So if you do download it, make sure to give an honest review. If you think it's fantastic, give a 5-star review. And just leave your comment about what you thought of the book. I'm still doing some work on the Successful Vaishnavas online course, so as usual, stay tuned. And I've been working with His Grace Vaisesika Prabhu on his parenting course, which is based on the nurtured heart approach to communicating with children, either as a parent or as a teacher, in a way that's very empowering and inspiring, and which helps children to behave in the proper manner, but also helps to bring out the greatness in both parents and children. So that's a very inspiring project, and I hope to have him on the show also very soon, because he's about to release an ebook, which will be available. So as soon as that's ready, I'll interview him on the show and give you the information about how you can get access to that. This is the first episode of Successful Vaishnavas where I'm actually getting the help of someone else to put it together, because I found that just recording the show, writing the show notes, and uploading it to the website, and all of those little tasks, each of those individual tasks doesn't take that long, but when you add them all up together, it was actually taking me hours to produce each show. So now I've set up a system where I just record the show, and I send the recordings to my virtual assistant, who transcribes it, puts the episodes together, and uploads it to the website. So this will be the first episode where we've done that. So please forgive any mistakes. As you know, when we do things the first time, it's not always perfect, but my virtual assistant is very capable, and I'm sure she will do a fantastic job, and it'll free up a lot of my time, which will mean that it'll be easier for me to release episodes more regularly. So as I've mentioned, I have a couple of interviews lined up, which I'm planning to do. If you have any ideas of a devotee who I can interview, who would be suitable for the Successful Vaishnavas show, please leave me a message. Either go onto Successful Vaishnavas and leave a voice message using SpeakPipe, or you can just email me at krishnendu@successfulvaishnavas.com. Or you can also go to the contact tab on our website and leave a message there too. I'd love to hear your ideas about who we can interview. I know there's a lot of wonderful devotees who are doing inspiring things, but I don't know them all, and I'm sure you know some, and by letting us know, it'll help to make this show a lot more interesting and allow us to put out episodes more often. So, that's pretty much the news from me at this stage. I don't have any numbers for you today. I haven't really been checking for a little while, as far as how many downloads of the show and how many people on the email list and so on. I'll let you know more about that in the next episode. In the meantime, let's hear a very thoughtful and practical presentation by His Grace Vaisesika Prabhu about setting goals. As I've mentioned before, Vaisesika Prabhu he's a Prabhupada disciple, maybe I forgot to mention that, and he's the driving force behind innovative ways to distribute books in North America in particular. And he's been working with the devotees at ISKCON Silicon Valley to do a lot of very interesting projects. So I won't say more at this point. I'll let you hear directly from him. and I hope you enjoy this interview with Vaisesika Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Welcome to ISV, which stands for ISKCON Silicon Valley, also individual, spontaneous, and voluntary devotional service. Hare Krishna. We've had quite a marathon here the last few days, Krishnendu. Of course, there was Nrsimha Chaturdashi, and then before that we had our Wednesday night program, and then did we have something on Thursday? No, but there were some devotees here cooking and having a food. Friday was Nrsimha Chaturdashi, and yesterday we had Saturday morning program, and then a Bhakti Life program, and an evening. 3 programs yesterday, and then one this morning. We just came from a home opening. Neelam and Nilesh bought a new house, so we had a homa in their home, and a kirtan in all the different places.
So Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
I was looking at your article there, and you were talking about the importance of goals.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just thinking, what sort of goals should we set in Krishna consciousness? Like in business, it's kind of clear we want to earn so much or sell so much or things like that. But in the process of Krishna consciousness, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on what
Well,
goals.
we can look to the Goswamis, Sankhya Purvaka Namagana Natibi Kalavasani Krito, the song by Srinivasacharya describing the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan who are direct disciples of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and who are acharyas in our line whom we emulate. We follow their teachings, and they lived 500 years ago. And in the verse I just quoted, which is a description of their daily activities, Sankhya means to count. Sankhya Purvaka Nama Gana Natabi. There's a way in which they counted all the different devotional practices they did, like how many times they chanted, how many times they offered obeisances. And they would do that in a scheduled way every day, so they could measure how they were doing. So we measure how many rounds we chant. That's a goal. That's a goal so that we can have numerical strength. Means that we do a minimum to make sure that we're fortified. We were talking yesterday at our Bhakti Life program about the longer you chant, the more opportunity you will have to have a teachable moment, which means a moment during which there's an unexpected opportunity to learn something. And there's an axiom in mathematics called the law of large numbers. Does anybody know about this? The law of large numbers says that the more times you test something, or the longer you give the test, for instance, say if you're flipping a coin, and you would assume that it would be 50-50, that it comes out heads and tails. Well, if you flipped it a few times, 3 or 4 times, you may get tails 3 times in a row, and you might conclude that, well, that's what it is. But if you flip it 1,000 times, then it comes closer to the 50-50. And if you do it 1,000,000 times, then it grows towards the mean, the mean average, which shows that. So in the same way, the longer you continue your practice, the more opportunity you have to increase. So any kind of goals that you apply when you're doing business can also be applied in devotional service. For instance, time periods. There are various time periods during which you can set goals. For instance, the 30-day goal is a really powerful kind of goal, because you can endure anything for 30 days practically, but you can get a lot done in 30 days. You can make a huge accomplishment. And oftentimes devotees take a vow during Kartik, for instance. That's 30 days, according to the moon. And during that time, they take a vow to chant a certain number of times more than usual, and these kinds of things. But you can do that anytime. You can pick a 30-day goal. We do here at ISV, we have a goal to chant the Bhagavad Gita, a chapter once every day, without missing. And we rotate which chapters we chant every month, so everybody knows that we're on the same chapter. So it's a 30-day goal. One-day goals are nice too. When you start your day, there's an old saying, never greet the dawn without a map. And when you start your day with a map and an understanding of what you're going to try to accomplish within that 24-hour period, you're a lot more productive than if you just leave it to chance. Then you can make a 1-week goal, a 1-month goal, and you can use your imagination, whatever things, in ways in which you can improve your sadhana. Reading a certain number of pages a day. We have a program called Be a Sage, page by page. And it gives us, we have a chart, and it shows how many pages you have to read each day to complete the Bhagavad Gita within, say, a month, or 6 months, or a year. And how many pages you have to read to complete the Srimad Bhagavatam within, a week. Or you'd have to be like Parikshit Maharaj and just stop eating, right? And then, if you want to do it, in a balanced, reasonable amount of time for your lifestyle, you pick out, a year, 2 years, 3 years. And then if I'm on 35 pages a day, that I'm going to get there. And it keeps you steady, because steadiness is really important, because the mind fluctuates and motivation fluctuates from one day to the next. So you have to tie yourself to some standard, some goal to move ahead. Goals are very potent. I did a presentation at the Temple President's meeting in Dallas at the beginning of the year, and the name of the presentation was Goals Are Potent. That was a statement of an old friend of mine, Will McCoy, who used to say that. And it's true. It's like flipping a switch. As soon as you have a goal, for instance, for book distribution, we notice this all over the country. If we go to a devotional community and we ask one simple question, what's your goal for the year? How many books are you going to distribute as a community? Then sometimes people say, we don't really have a goal. Then there's no impetus. But the moment they set a goal, say, would you like to set a goal? And they'll say, yeah. What should we do? And just as a couple of examples, the year before last in Washington, D.C., we were talking about a goal, and they said they would go for 5,000 books in the year. And I said, why not 10,000? And because I really knew they could do it, seeing the devotees that they had there. And they said, okay, we'll go for 10,000. They agreed with it. And Lokajaksha Prabhu and Vidarbha, who head up the Sankirtan program, they said they didn't sleep all night. They had one restless night, thinking, what did we do? What did we commit to? They're very worried, but they became energized. It galvanized the whole team, and they ended up doing that year maybe 27,000 books. And in Laguna Beach, one simple question. This was a year ago. Yeah, last year. What is your goal for the year? They said 450 books for the year, with the kind of devotees and infrastructure you have here. And they looked a little sheepish, but I said, why not go for 5,000? You could easily do 5,000. And as soon as they agreed to it, which they did immediately. I mean, Tukaram is a great leader, and so is Rupanuga Prabhu and all the other devotees there. So the whole board agreed, and they said, yeah, let's try for 5,000. If you think we can do it, we'll try for it. And they ended up doing 15,000 books. So I see it as a switch, like an electrical switch. When you set a goal for your devotional practice and you say, I'm going to do 4 rounds a day, then immediately you start readjusting your life around that principle, around that goal. You become energized and you move forward towards it. So it's vital for moving forward, because we're living a dual existence. We're spiritual beings. We're in a finite material body, and we have a finite amount of time every day and during the span of our lifetime. And we want to advance. We want to get to a certain point. So you're going to be 5 years older in 5 years anyway. And if you set a goal, a 5-year goal, to say, this is what I want to achieve in the next 5 years, and you chip away at it every day, then you can attain amazing things. So, I don't know if that answered your question completely. Do you have a follow-up for that?
No, I think that's a brilliant answer. Thank you. I was getting goosebumps myself just thinking of the potential.
Yeah. The daily goal is a really important thing, sort of having an idea of what you want to do during the day. And I've found this myself. If I work from a list, if I write down, I keep in my pocket a little book. I always have it. Never leave home without it. It's always in my pocket. I mean, I go through a lot of them too. And it's, if I start the day and I write down what my objectives are for the day, then my mind's focused on it. And there's a tool of time management. The name of it's a little funny, but it's called, Swallow That Frog. And Brian Tracy talks about this. It's like, if you have 2 frogs that you have to swallow, you swallow the biggest one first. Because once you do, then the smaller one's a lot easier. You swallow the biggest, ugliest one first. Then you can, go on. Of course, they're like, so whatever kinds of tasks you're facing, don't avoid the big ones, the ones that have the highest impact. That's a kind of a goal setting also. Do the things that you fear the most, that seem to be looming, that you don't want to deal with. Get it done first, and then it energizes you the rest of the day. And so you can do that in devotional service and make sure you cover your fundamentals. I think this is a very important point, and I always come back to this in my own practice, and I talk about it to others as well, and that is that cover the basics every day. You always win with the basics. In sports, good coaches, they teach the fundamentals over and over again. It's not the fancy stuff. In Mridanga, you learn the fundamentals. There's Teraketa. Teraketa is a very simple kind of hand practice that almost seems too simple to be effective. But, my Mridanga teacher told me that, the great Mridanga players, they'll sit and practice Teraketa, which is just one simple beat, for 6 months before they go on to anything else, because it's a fundamental that's so important. And in spiritual life, there are fundamentals, and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu prioritizes for us. There's 64 items of devotional service that are mentioned by Rupa Goswami in the Nectar of Devotion in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and out of those, he takes 5 and puts them in a special category. He says these 5 out of the 64 are the most potent and important. Those are worshipping the deity, living in holy place, associating with devotees, reading Srimad Bhagavatam, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, and chanting Hare Krishna. So out of all the 64, here's 5. He says that are so potent that even if you have a little bit of connection with them, and even if you don't have faith in them, but you have regular connection with them, you'll advance and come to the highest position. And then he, out of the 5, he says, out of all these 5, if you chant Hare Krishna, then you accomplish all those too. So this is kind of a way that Lord Chaitanya gives us to focus on the fundamentals. What are the most important things? Chanting Hare Krishna. And then comes Srimad Bhagavatam and these other things. And there are verses like Arajo Bhagavan Vrajesha Tanayas Taddhama Vrindavana Ramya Kachirupasana Rajavidu Vargainava Kalpita Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanam Amalam Prema Pumarto Mahan Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Matamidam Tatrapara Napara. He says, this Chaitanya Manjusha says that these are the most highly held principles by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that Vrindavan Dham and Krishna are non-different, and that the highest method of worshiping Krishna was that which was enacted by the gopis of Vrindavan, and that the Srimad Bhagavatam is the spotless Purana. It's the best of all, and that the goal of life is to attain prema. Goal. And these we hold in high regard because these were held in high regard by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So this is a way that we prioritize, we set goals. What is the goal of life? Prema. It's nothing else. And the Shastra directs us over and over again to come back to this, that unless you're performing activities, savai pum samparo dharmo yato bhaktir hoksajai haitukiya pratiyata yatma suprasidati. It gives us the gold standard that's unmotivated, uninterrupted service. This is what we're after. And also says that if you're doing all kinds of other work, dharma swanustita pumsam vishvaksena katasuya notpariya yadiratim shrama evahi kevalam. Whatever work you're doing, if it doesn't bring you to attraction to Krishna, to hearing about Krishna, to being a devotee of Krishna, then shrama means it's useless labor. You're wasting your time. Shrama, and then emphatically says, eva hi kevalam. 3 emphatics. Eva hi kevalam. Absolutely, without question, this is true. So, Shastra, considering Shastra and what the great acharyas do for us, they bring us into a focused position to say, this is what you should be doing with your time. And this, devotees, who are advanced. Of course, anyone who's advanced or has a taste for anything becomes expert at time management. Like Prabhupada points out, a person who's really interested in making money. And there, you can see people who are just absorbed in it. Mike Milken, he was a good example. I read about him many years ago. He was a huge investor. He lived in California, so he had to wake up early to catch the stock market on the East Coast. But he used every second of his time to figure out how to invest in the stock market in order to, to make profit. And he made millions and millions and millions. He went to jail later, because there was some discrepancies and things like that. And that often happens. But Prabhupada points out that if you go to a big man, like a big shot who's running a big corporation or something like that, and ask if you can get an appointment, what kind of appointment will you get? If you're lucky, if you have a really good reason for talking to him, a minute or two. In fact, one of the devotees in Delhi, who's an expert book distributor, he distributes hundreds of thousands of books every year. And he does it by Hare Krishna Gadai. Thank you for coming. He goes through the trades in Delhi and he finds all the billionaires. He's not interested in millionaires. He wants billionaires. He finds out which of the companies are doing exceptionally well. And then he makes appointments. He said sometimes it takes him a year or two to get an appointment.
Make your computer easier to
with the head person. So, but finally when he gets the appointment, and he gets into the person's office, and they usually, in India, because there's a kind of an etiquette, the person will say, what can I get you? Like, do you want a glass of water, or 7-Up, or something like that? What can I get you? He always says, lukewarm water. Because that gives them an extra 2 or 3 minutes. Because they have to figure out it's cold water, hot water. We don't, and they're like, where do you get lukewarm water? So it buys them more time. That's how valuable the time is, talking to a big shot, because, that's all they're going to give you. Why? Because they're in samadhi. They're in samadhi. They're using every second of time. They have one appointment after another, and it's all about building the empire and keeping it all going. And so devotees are like that too. It's called avyarta kalatvam. If you ask a devotee who's, absorbed, you'll see that time is limited. Because avyarta kalatvam means, and it's a symptom of bhava, of advanced emotion in Krishna consciousness. He or she will not waste a second outside of the service of Krishna. And very stingy with with anything that's not related to Krishna, it's not even a consideration, or, if it's an emergency or a duty to perform, that person is very careful about how he or she uses his or her time. So time management is naturally there. Time management has to do with managing a scarce resource, which is time. It's the most valuable of all resources, as we heard on Friday when we were on the teachings of Prahlad Maharaj. He was saying how valuable the human form of life is, and that automatically built in with our 100 years, we waste so many years because we have to sleep, we have to, maintain our bodies and so on. So, time management, setting goals, and all these things are very much in the mindset of the devotees. But it's all so that they can stay focused on the goal, which is developing Krishna consciousness. And back to what I was saying, the fundamentals are particularly important, because if you cover those every day, it fortifies you. And we also heard on Friday that every devotee should have a fear of falling down from the process of devotional service. And Prabhupada said this is a regulative principle. Every sane person, every sane devotee, sane, you must be sane. Every sane devotee should have a healthy fear of Maya and of falling down from the path of devotional service. And this is a regulative principle. So we shouldn't act casually, when it comes to the process of devotional service, or think, I'm an exception, you're finished. As soon as I'm an exception, Maya won't get me, and then you're gone. She sweeps you away very quickly. So devotees close those gaps and make sure that they're not leaving the door open for Maya, who Prabhupada describes as a silver-tongued salesman who comes to the door and knock, knock, knock. No, just open a crack. I just want to tell you something. And the next thing, you just bought a $2,000 vacuum cleaner that you didn't need. And then your wife comes home. What? You bought what? We already have a vacuum cleaner. But it sounded so good. So Maya's expert like that at catching our attention. So we have to close the gaps. And much of that is done through goals. You see Haridas Thakur, who had a goal to chant, he chanted 164 rounds, 192 rounds a day. And so, sometimes when a person is very advanced, there are people in the village or in the town that become envious and think that, we'd like to see him fall down. So there was a policeman, a constable in the village, Benapul, where Haridas Thakur lived. And he was envious of Haridas Thakur because he saw that he was an advanced devotee. So he had this scheme. He wanted to defame him. So he hired a local prostitute to go to this place where Haridas Thakur was chanting all day and all night. And he hired her specifically to go allure him and try to discredit him. And they would be, waiting outside, for the signal, and then they come running in and then catch him, and then that would be it for his reputation. And that's what he was looking forward to. And so the prostitute came to the house of Haridas Thakur. He just lived in a little hut where he was chanting all day. And she presented herself before him, and he said, "Very good, nice idea, and I'll definitely accommodate you. But first I have to finish my vow. And I've got some chanting to do. So you stay here, and when I'm done, then no problem." So he kept chanting all night, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Anybody who's chanted 64 rounds in a day knows that you can't dilly-dally. You get up early and you start chanting your 64 rounds, and you don't spend a lot of time on the phone. You don't go on the internet. You don't stop and talk to people. You got to chant because 64 rounds takes a while. And, with other duties you have to do in a day, what to speak of 192 rounds. So anyway, he at the end of the night, he said to her, I'm very sorry I didn't finish my vow. I wasn't able to complete, so I wasn't able to spare any time for you, but you come back tomorrow. So she came back the next day, and same thing happened. And the night afterwards also. And she kept telling the constable, I'll get him tonight for sure, he promised, and everything like that. But what was happening was she was becoming attracted by the holy name and by the presence of Haridas Thakur. Her heart transformed in just a short amount of time, within a few days. And finally she came to him and, she was waiting there and she said, I have to admit to you, I was sent here, this is a whole setup, And he said, oh, I know. I already knew that. And she said, what can I do to alleviate my offense? And I also, I'm attracted to this whole process. So she became his disciple and shaved her head and sat down in a little yard with some tulsi, with a tulsi plant, and just chanted and became a devotee. And, this is what covering the fundamentals will do. It gives you an excuse to put Maya off. So Maya comes and says, how about this? And you say, sure, fine, no problem, but just let me finish all my fundamentals. By the time you finish your rounds, you're like, there's no time for Maya. That's the idea, to close all those little gaps. But it starts with covering the fundamentals really well every day. Don't skip a day and think it's okay. Don't cheat on your rounds and, don't do a good job. But focus on that part as the foundation of every day that you start, and add in little parts so it keeps adding up and squeezing everything else out. I always joke here, but it's not so much of a joke anymore at ISV. That, we start hearing and chanting, we add more prayers, we add more classes and this and that. And I always told the story of the frog. Scientists say that if you take a frog and you throw him in hot water, he'll jump right out. But if you put him in a room temperature pan of water and you gradually turn up the heat, then he'll cook inside there, because he doesn't feel the degrees, the temperature rising by degrees. And so similarly in our lives, as we make little increases when we're able to, not irresponsible, vows that we can't keep anyway, and then we come crashing down and then try to get back up again. We take a reasonable goal that we can handle, and then by increments increase it. When we see an opportunity, then we increase it. And gradually what it does is we get a taste for the hearing and chanting, and also it becomes a staple in our life. And other things which were superfluous, which may have been anartas or false values that we really didn't need in our life, they are winnowed out from our life. Or as the analogy of pouring milk into a glass of ink, the more, as you continue to pour, the ink all comes out and the milk gradually is the predominant substance. And so we continue to pour into our life these things, these fundamentals, basically chanting Hare Krishna, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, association with devotees, worshiping the deity, and living in a holy place. These 5 are particularly recommended. So you should attach yourself to some program that you don't waver from. And it doesn't matter where you start. Everyone can start at a certain level. Even if it's one tiny little vow, that is like a wedge. It has a small end and a big end. And you make your stand on that wedge and you say, at least one mantra every day. Okay, is that big enough? Absolutely. Because what will happen? You'll find a day when you can't do one mantra and you're about to fall asleep and you'll say, oh, I didn't do my one mantra. And you say, you have to. You said. You'll jump back up again and you'll do it. You'll do it. And then the next day it'll be fresh in your mind that I have to do my one mantra. Then you'll arrange your life in such a way that I do my one mantra first before I do anything else. You put it in the right place. And then you'll add on because you'll get a taste. Sometimes with the Bhagavad Gita, you'll think that the Bhagavad Gita is beautiful. I get so much from it. But then other days the mind will say, I'm busy, Bhagavad Gita is okay. But then you have your vow and you say, no, you have to read these 5 verses or 1 chapter, or whatever it is. And you pick it up, feeling not much taste. But after the first 3 minutes, you think, what was my mind thinking? This is nectar. And you become absorbed. And you'll find yourself there for an hour or 2 hours, carried away in a natural way because of your association, natural taste for the Bhagavad Gita. So in these ways, we have to make goals that will keep us close to the fundamental practice of Krishna consciousness every day. And then we develop our own volition for doing these things. This is called taste. There's devotional service in practice, and this is based on rules and regulations, because I don't want to do it. My mind wants to do something else, but I know I have to do this. I know this is good for me, so I do it anyway. This is called Vidhi Bhakti, following the rules. But after I practice for some time, dutifully, I develop my own taste for it. This is devotional service in taste, where I actually feel a spontaneous desire to do it. Like waking up early. Sometimes in the beginning it can feel like drudgery or difficulty or something like that, or coming and doing Mangalartik. But after a while, when you have some experience, like the Mangalartik on Nrsimha Chaturdasi was magical. And you want to experience that again. And you have a taste for it, and you'll come back again and again. And then it'll become a way of life. And then from that, a real attachment grows, a real attachment to the devotional activity. And then the higher stages where our real love for God comes out. But it begins by degrees. We can start in a small way, in a measured way, and then keep to those fundamentals, whatever they are, wherever we're qualified to start, and then continue those, come hell or high water. Matra sparshas tu kontaya shitoshna sukadukada agama paino nityas tamstitikshashva bharata. The only way to deal with the miseries and the changes in material life is tolerance. You have to learn tolerance. You just have to tolerate certain things. And how do you tolerate? You go on with your duty in Krishna consciousness. You have to do it because it's the most important aspect. We do have two sides to our life. One is called paramartika, and the other one is called it just escaped me. Anyway, they're described by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. One is in relationship to our material duties, the things that we have to do to maintain ourselves, and the other is our the ultimate goal of life, the highest principle. And so these things we have to balance. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says in the beginning, our duties to our body, our family, our our career and all these kinds of things, they have a much heavier weight. But as we continue in our devotional practice, the weightier side will be our devotional practice. But the two can be integrated as well, and they must be. It's like today we came from Neelam and Nilesh's house, where they bought a new house and we had a home opening. And the theme really was that what they've opened there is a new temple. It's an expansion of, once in Detroit, Michigan, a young man came before Prabhupada who had 3 kids. And at that time, in the history of ISKCON, most members were brahmacharis and sannyasis. There were very few householders. If you were a householder, you were the odd man out. And he was very humbly approached Prabhupada and said that, all of these brahmacharis, they're in the temple 24 hours a day serving. He said, what can I do? I have a job. I have 3 kids and such. And Prabhupada said, your house is made of brick and stone. The temple is made of brick and stone. In the business, in the temple, the business is for Krishna. If you're in your house, it's for Krishna. Then there's no difference. No difference between the temple and your house. It's the consciousness that matters. So Neelam and Nilesh's house is another base from which they go out and spread the Sankirtan movement. That's what they do. And they have their job at the same time. They're raising Dhriti.
Prabhu, you have a formula. SDI equals LR. small daily improvements equals long-term results. Could you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, daily if you make a little improvement, and sometimes the daily improvement is just doing it. The mind is so obstinate and unsteady and difficult to control that your daily improvement might just be do it anyway. You may not be able to muster an improvement. You may not even be able to think like that and say that, I'm going to do better today than I did before. You may be able to just say, I'm going to do it no matter what. And that's an improvement, because when you do your duty in devotional service, despite the fact that you don't feel like it or something like that, then you'll have a breakthrough.
Could you speak a little bit about how to handle ups and downs that we feel in our inspiration?
Association is very important. There's an old story about how before people had electricity, they used to keep in their homes a little fire burning in the winter in their stove, and even for cooking, and before they had matches and all these kinds of things. It's it takes a little endeavor to light a fire by yourself through tinder and all these kinds of things, right? And so householders generally would at least keep some of the embers burning so they could restart the fire the next day. But every once in a while, someone wouldn't attend to it and the fire would go out. So rather than restart the fire all over again themselves, they would go to a neighbor and they would ask to borrow one of the embers from their fire and say, "Can you give me a little fire, a little coal that's burning?" And they take it back and then get the fire going. So we have to stay connected with others who have a high degree of Krishna consciousness, and it's an important principle to have good association, and we can reach out to those devotees, when we need encouragement. Everyone needs encouragement. The material world is an enervating plane. It's always taking away our energy. There are many discouraging words that will come from people. Even when you're practicing spiritual life, people may try to discourage you or say, that's not so important. Why are you wasting your time? Or many combinations of things that may affect you. So one of the best ways to stay healthy and fortified is to connect yourself with people who will always encourage you in devotional service. I have people like that in my life that when I have a conundrum, when I'm working on a particular problem or something like that, I have godbrothers that I'm very close with that I'll call them up or I'll get them on Skype and we'll have a conversation and I'll say, this just happened, that just happened, whatever it is, we'll talk about it in a deep way. And getting somebody else's perspective is really important, and encouragement. So this is Guya Makyati Prachiti. Rupa Goswami says this, sharing what's in your heart with other devotees and hearing them share. This is what we do when we come together to sit and talk. This is Guya Makyati Prachiti. I'm telling you what's in my heart. You're telling me, you're responding. We talked the other day when we sat here for Nishinga Chaturdasi. We all really enjoyed it. Everyone said it was really nice. We sat here for maybe, how many hours? 8 hours? 9 hours. We sat and just read Srimad Bhagavatam and discussed, and it was nice, right? It's very nice. You go away feeling fortified. And so how to keep yourself connected with this kind of encouragement? You should have people on your Rolodex. Not that there are Rolodexes anymore, but actually I still have one. But yeah, you got on your smartphone, have people that you can dial up and talk to and say, this is how I'm feeling. Someone just said this to me, or whatever it is, to move through. And a community is really as strong as these kinds of connections that we have, and a facility for doing that. We're just talking today about how a community is really based on the love and trust that the members have among one another. And that takes a while. in order to develop an actual relationship with a teacher, with peers, and so on, it takes some period of time. You have to see people in different conditions of life. Like the devotees I'm closest with over so many years are devotees I served with, and I saw their mettle under fire. Like when you're in the military and you go out into the battle with somebody and you say that they didn't cower, they did their duty anyway, and you were side by side and you shared these kinds of experiences. And I might see them 20 years later and we still have this bond because, we're close like that. And in a community like this too, we work together to spread Krishna consciousness, which is just as hard as, maintaining any other kind of organization. Maybe a little harder because everyone's a volunteer. They come up and say, by the way, I'm leaving, and it's like, what can you say? We just lost half our department. There's a lot of things to deal with, but over time, we develop these kinds of relationships. We should. This is balanced spiritual life where you have a way that you can communicate with devotees in an intimate way. So you can tell them what's on your mind, or you can just call them up and say, encourage me. I want some encouragement. You encourage me. And my friends, they'll do the same thing for me. They'll call me up and say, this, that, encourage me. I'll say, okay, you don't know how great you are. I'm not saying it as a platitude. It's true, but they can't see it. And we have to find our way like that. Through association. We're strong when we hold together. Prabhupada used to give this example about, one stick. If one stick is there, anybody could easily break it. But when you add, 10, 20 sticks together, it becomes unbreakable. So we have to forge our own practice by connecting with like-minded devotees. And this is recommended by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He says one should associate with like-minded devotees who are more advanced than oneself. And the more that you can do that, the stronger you get. And that's why Prabhupada formed a society. Otherwise, he would have just, just pass out the knowledge and let people fend for themselves. But he took the trouble to create this society. It's an international society for Krishna consciousness so that people could help each other. And, they could coach each other, counsel each other, be there for each other. And that's where the strength is. Takes a village. Hillary Clinton. Yeah, you got to have a village.
Following on from that idea that you need a village or a community, could you tell us about Senko, your devotee care program?
Senko stands for Senior Contact, and that means that there are many, many people now in our community, and all of them would like to have a voice to express their needs, interests, and concerns. And we've set up a system so that there are a group of senior contacts who will be reaching out or allowing you to reach out to them. That'll be all explained on Wednesday. There'll be a choice of who you want to be connected with so that you can channel all your good ideas and also whatever needs you have in devotional service. If you have concerns also, you can bring those up. And we have a system we've devised so that everyone can feel included in the community and have a voice and feel protected, taken care of. If you have special needs, then that Senko will pass on the information. It's based on complete confidentiality also. If you have this relationship with a Senko, they'll sign a confidentiality contract saying that they won't discuss any of your personal discussions with anybody else unless you allow them to do that. But it will give you an opportunity, or anybody who wants to feel more connected. And more details will come out on Wednesday. There'll also be some written material that explains the beginning stages of this Senko program. We hope you like it.
Yeah, that's great, Prabhu. Thanks a lot for that. It's really good to hear how you're taking the time to really look after the devotees. I've had a wonderful time here, although it's very short. And I'm very inspired to hear about the programs that are happening here, and the way you speak my language, Prabhu, somehow. I don't know what it means, but I can really relate to how you're speaking and the way you present everything, and I really appreciate it. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed that interview with Vaisesika Prabhu. I thought it was fantastic. I loved the ideas that he spoke about, the importance of goals, the importance of association, and basically the importance of encouraging each other. For me, those were some of the really inspiring ideas I got from it. What did you think of it? Why don't you go over to successfulvaishnavas.com/ISV and leave a comment and tell us what you got from that interview, what realizations you had. Otherwise, I look forward to catching up with you on the next episode. Hare Krishna. Thanks for listening. To find out more, go to successfulvaishnavas.com.
Whatever little service that anyone can do for Krishna is to be appreciated and celebrated.
Just give this life to Krishna.
We know that they have much more potential than they're presently using.
I went to a place of relishing the activity and letting go of the result completely.
You just associate with pure devotees. Then you shall be able to cross over the ocean of nescience.